Hey, it's me, the mouth of the South, Jimmy Hart. Hey, check out my new tag team, baby, Monty and the Pharaoh.
Hey, Jimmy, don't forget to tell them about Long Island's #1 pro wrestling broadcast.
Well, you know what, I would, but you already did it.
It's Monty and the Pharaoh.
The Monty and Pharaoh Show.
Monty Pharaoh, bro.
Monty and the Pharaoh.
The Monty and the Pharaoh.
You've got the future Hall of Famer, that rocker, Marty Jannetty, MJ in the house, and I'm sitting here with two more future Hall of Famers, Monty and the Pharaoh. We're doing that stuff and we gonna rock it.
Monty and the Pharaoh.
It's Monty and the Pharaoh.
Monty and the Pharaoh.
Monty and the Pharaoh. Monty and the Pharaoh.
Monty and the Pharaoh.
And Monty and the Pharaoh. Oh, is it Monty and the Pharaoh?
Monty and the Pharaoh.
Monty and the Pharaoh.
Hey, cut music. When you want the best in professional wrestling, Long Island, there's only one place you're going to get it, right here.
Monty and the Pharaoh. Now, that's not just the coolest, and that's not just the best. That, my friends, is just incredible.
Monty and the Pharaoh. Duh.
I'm having one fun with Monty and the Pharaoh, and I'm going to put him in the crossface again, and he's going to go down right now. Yeah.
Hey! Nikita Koloff, the Russian Nightmare! And you're watching the #1 show on Long Island with Monty and the Pharaoh.
Andre's sitting there naked, not naked, but with no shorts on because he was changing his tights and a towel over him.
Wop, 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 wop.
And the whole dressing room. Oh my God.
Our interviews back then, we didn't have 15 and 20-minute interviews. We had 3-minute, 4-minute interviews for the towns, and we might have 2 or 3 of those, but building up to it.
To be fair, though, you had better storylines back then. Every match had a really good storyline to it that got the fan involved, and obviously the match was the finisher, right?
Yeah.
I think that's what's missing right now. I mean, Mike, you got children presently working in there right now, and I believe you worked as an agent. Are you still working as an agent for them?
No, I did it for almost 13 and a half years. I just finished up this year.
So how's your feelings with that, like the comparison?
Yeah, I mean, it's changed a lot, and it's hard to go on TV and tell a story wrestling if you have a 5-minute segment or a 6-minute segment. And an entrance or 2 entrances, it's like a fast forward. Boom, 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 we're done. And I think time, because a lot of the talents there, I did a lot of live events, and they have 15 minutes or 18 minutes to tell like that. And I think they do so much better in that atmosphere because they're not under the gun, and they have to fit so much into TV because there are a lot of interviews and backstage and vignette type situations. Then the matches aren't the concentration. More time should be given to that so you can tell a story wrestling in a match, and it doesn't have to be a 3-minute short story, I think.
So as an agent, when you would say that, what they just said, nope, that's not the way it works.
It's not the way it works. You're basically told what they want, and you work with the talent, and then you work within your allotted time, because there's a lot of different aspects that go into the sponsorships. They have to do this, they got to have this, we have to advertise for our pay-per-views, blah, 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 whatever. And, some matches will have 2 or 3 segments, but there's going to be a bigger match, obviously. But to me, that's just hard to unless you're doing a squash match, it's hard to have any kind of competitive match in a short period of time like that. And basically that's what we used to do years ago, was have a squash match. You were the guy, and I'm gonna get 98% of this match. You just hang on, kid. You know what I mean?
Right.
And that's how you got yourself over.
We say that all the time, though, but back in the day when we grew up on wrestling, right, like Morocco and Backlund would have an hour Broadway at the Garden, but, you know, there was a lot of slowdowns, right, arm bars. Do you think today's audience just can't stand for that?
Well, yeah, because they're programmed from television not to see that. You know what I mean? Then it's boring to them.
Well, you know, I say yes and no. I know that I know when I was working, again, for Bill Watts in Mid-South, you know, he noticed that a lot of us were, he says, I'm seeing a lot of high spots. High spot, high spot, high spot. You know, he said, so he took me and Terry Gordy, and he says, you guys are the main event all week. He said, I want you to go 55 minutes and then give them the finish. He says, number one, a lot of the what we call the smart marks are going to say, okay, they're going Broadway, and you're really going to screw them more or less when they go, oh wow, they went that long, and yeah. So, but he said the idea is you can't have a 55-minute match and be bouncing around the ring all the time. You have got to settle down and tell a story. And that's what Bill was getting at. And so I agree with Mike. I said, but you know, and it might be, and for the talent today, through no fault of their own, they haven't been exposed to what Mike and I were, you know, 20, 30 years ago, in terms of the way they have been taught the business. We were taught the business doing it. We're in the ring with a polished professional who's leading us around by the nose, and he's got 15 or 20 minutes, you know, for us to start to understand how this whole thing works.
And 15 or 20 years of experience.
Yeah, exactly. And so the young talent today, they don't have that. And, you know, and that's why it's kind of like when you know, how long were you there, Mike? 13 years? Producing? Yeah. You know, I left, and I've been doing my ministry, and I got a call from Arn, and this was back in 05 and 06, 05. Arn said, the company asked me to give you a call. They'd like you to come back to work. I started laughing. I said, do what? and he said, well, you know, it says, like, you know, being part of the creative team. You know, and I actually had a conversation with Stephanie. I said, Stephanie, I said, I'm not Clint Eastwood. Clint Eastwood's good on both sides of the camera. I said, my gift is you tell me what you want to happen, and I can go out there in the ring and I can make the story happen. That's my gift. You know, but you know, and I did it for about a year and a half, and I just couldn't. And I don't know if it's I couldn't or I wouldn't, you know, just because of the way I was taught and everything. For me to sit down with two wrestlers and map out an entire match just made no sense. I said, I can't do that. I can't do that because I never did it. In other words, the real art form of what we did was improv. It's like, oh yeah, I know the finish. I know exactly how it's going to end. That's a setup for the next show. And if I have a little history with you, in other words, if we'd already had a couple matches, we might go, okay, based on what the people saw last time, maybe we should start this way tonight. But all that stuff in the middle of the start and the finish was organic.
But how about with Randy at WrestleMania 4?
That's what I was going to ask.
Because Randy always was notorious for having a blueprint. Did he have a I got this great match here, right here, Ted.
Right. That's the first time I ever did that, and I told Randy too, and it was funny because Elizabeth was sitting there. I said, Randy, I said, listen, I said, I understand what you want to do, and I said, that's fine. I said, but give me this leeway as we're doing this. If something comes to me as we're on this track, let me call it, and we're going to come right back to this. Can you do that? You know, he just kind of looked up at Elizabeth and said, "Randy, you can do that." And he said, "Okay, brother, we can do it." And so we went out and tore the house down.
Wow. And you did.
But basically stuck to the game plan. But there was, I just threw in a couple of things that weren't planned.
Nice.
So, Mike, you've just come off the working with them. Can you guys weigh in? Got a lot of pro wrestling experts out there that are always defending the wrestlers, saying, while we're on break, everybody, Farrell was talking to Ted about superstar Billy Graham, who seems to be still, we discussed last week, still angry over losing to Bob Backlund in 1978. I don't know why, but anyway. And a lot of these experts still talk about how unfairly wrestlers are being treated, that they're really not independent contractors. And then the most recent occurrence of the WWE saying, hey, look, you cannot use your name as to use third-party social media to generate revenue for yourself, your wrestling name or whatever contract you signed for. You guys want to weigh in on both those subjects?
Well, first of all, I don't know anything about what Billy Graham said and don't care. Secondly,
fair enough.
You know, the wrestling business is what it is, and if you agree to get in it, there's going to be rules, whether I'm saying it's right or wrong. There's going to be rules for any company you work for. So unless things change, you have to deal with that, you know. And I know that some of these guys and girls are making a lot more money than I made in the wrestling business, so I wouldn't be too unhappy about it, you know. I would kind of work around it and deal with it, because like I said, I mean, go try to find another job somewhere. It's not that easy to make the kind of money you can make working for a WWE, you know. And unfortunately, is it perfect? Probably not, but you know, you're going to deal with that kind of thing in anything. There's going to be upsides and downsides, so I'm not going to jump on the mass wagon and try to bury it, you know. Especially I have two of my kids work there, you know, so sure. And I'm glad that they're able to be there at this time. So, well, and you know, it's kind of like they're not the only game in town anymore. There is some competition now, and I've always said competition is good for business. Competition ultimately is good for the talent because there is some, you know, competition is always good for anybody, because it's kind of like, you know, like when my kids were playing soccer, I knew some parents that wanted to put their kids on a team where their child could be the star. I wanted to put my kid on a team that was good, to where there was some people that were better than them out there, so that would make them better.
Make them better.
That was the whole thing. Competition's always good for business. Right. But still, the WWE is still the biggest game in town, and you know, whether you went to work for one company or another company, they are going to have their rules, and you know, it's kind of like the $1 Million Man. The $1 Million Man character is a property of the WWE. Now, I do have an agreement with them, you know, from years ago. You know, I asked for permission to use the character as it pertained to and in pursuit of my ministry. In other words, can I ask these churches to, you know, advertise me as the WWF $1 Million Man, and so they wrote off on that. So anything, I mean, that's why. So
Vince didn't give you didn't give you an issue with that at all?
Not on that, no. And so that's why I can have a $1 Million Man, you know, website, because I you know, I use that for wrestling, but I also use that to advertise where I'm going to be speaking and things like that. So you know, it's not like you can't, you know. And again, I would rather be in a position where I'm working with the company as opposed to butting heads with them, because you know, Mike and I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you right now if it hadn't been for Vince McMahon and what he did for the wrestling industry.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So,
thank you.
Thank you.
You know, we go head to head constantly with people who absolutely hate Vince McMahon. So I have to ask you guys, while I have you here, And they hate Vince McMahon, a lot of them, because they feel that the old-timers, quote-unquote, the guys from the past, are not taken care of by Vince currently, that there should be pensions, there should be medical benefits, and all these other things that are obviously sensitive issues. Do you guys feel Vince owes the old-timers a living?
Well, in my opinion, that would be nice to have something like that.
Fair enough.
But in the real world, not everything is perfect, like I said, you
Absolutely.
know, and at some point you just got to move on and you know, and find happiness within yourself. I actually was out of the wrestling business for 3 years, and I ran a car lot for my father-in-law. My wife and him got in a fight, and then I was no longer at the car lot. You know, they got in an argument, which they regrouped later, but I called up John Laurinaitis and Jerry Briscoe, and I went back to work for Vince, you know, as a producer. And it worked out. I got a good run out of it, you know, a 13-year run. So I can't complain, and complaining does no good anyways, you know. And I just turned 63 years old. I could have worked a couple more years as a producer and retired at 65, but I made it this far and decided, you know, they let me go, and I said, there's not a problem with that. I've had enough.
Been a good run.
Yeah, it's been a good run. And 23 more years on top of it, you know, wrestling over the years. So, you know, I can't complain.
Who from the current WWE roster would be the new Money Inc.?
What?
I don't even know how to answer that one.
I don't even know if they are. Do you guys even watch the product nowadays? Because a lot of guys don't.
I'll be honest, I don't.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I'm busy doing other things.
The answer is Monty and the Pharaoh. That's the new Money.
So
Inc.
sorry, Nate.
By the way, I'm broke, so donate now.
Ask both
Thank
of your
you.
questions, and sorry, the gentleman had done. So, performance-enhancing drugs, HGH, steroids, right? Prevalent in all of sports. My viewpoint is that it has many values to it. That's just my viewpoint. Did you guys partake in using either one of those in your career?
Look at me. Do I look like I've ever been on steroids?
There you go. There you go.
I don't know, man. You're a big guy.
Oh, what a warrior bicycle pump veins? No.
You know, again, I don't know.
No,
Mike, you? Nothing?
No, and, you know, when I first was starting Jack Briscoe, I was training hard with Ricky Steamboat and in the Carolinas, and Jack Briscoe goes, and also the Briscoe brothers were in the Carolinas when I was there the first time. Jack goes, don't you ever get on that. He goes, you're a wrestler. He goes, you don't need that. You don't want to look like a musclehead. You want to look like a wrestler, because that's what you are, and I never did.
Wow.
And basically, I was told the same thing.
Yeah.
Right.
That's right.
Never get on it.
I never thought either one of you messed around with that stuff. You look like wrestlers to me. So, can you guys speak a little bit about the great Andre the Giant? We always love to ask Andre stories. Any stories for us about Andre?
Man, I loved Andre. I mean, you know, and of course, I guess in the business we call it the rub. You know, like when like a lot of guys are established stars. Yeah, when you got a new guy coming in that you want to push real hard, or you say, oh man, you know, we can make this guy a star. You put him with somebody that can help elevate their stature.
Sure.
Well, I think that's what Vince did with the $1 Million Man character. You know, that whole deal. I mean, you know, it's like the storyline at you know at that event, you know, back in '88. The match was Andre and Hulk, but the story was me.
Yeah.
And so post that and post WrestleMania 4, for almost the next year, I had a lot of tag team matches, you know, with Andre against Hulk and Savage, or Hulk and whoever. And so you know, that relationship helped elevate me. But Andre was he was just a great guy. My funniest Andre story is, and people, you know, and HBO did a pretty good job.
Great documentary.
Of letting the people know just how hard life was for this guy. I mean, here's a guy that can't get comfortable anywhere. You know, I mean, we had ride in conversion vans or limousines because he was too big for anything else. You put him in a first-class seat on an airplane, he can sit there, but he's not comfortable. So we go to Japan, 14 hours, boom. On the bus, the hotel, we're going to meet in the lobby and then go out and eat. And so everybody goes to the room, freshes up. I go out, I hit the button, the door opens, and there's Andre. Hey, boss, let's go eat. So we start down. The elevator stops like on every floor. And these little Japanese people get on. Now, 2 stops ago, you and I would have said, this elevator's full, get the next one. Not in Japan. In Japan, they're used to packing them in because the whole country is the size of the state of California. 3/4 of that landmass is uninhabitable mountains.
Right.
So you got 1/4 of the state of California with a population of half that of the United States. That is stacking them up. But, you know, they just keep getting on. Andre reaches over and gives me the little tap, you know, and I looked up at him and he winks.
Oh, no.
So the next thing you hear, and I to this day, I remember I kept thinking, I know he's the giant, but how could any human possibly have that much air in their body? It was the loudest, longest fart I've ever heard. I mean, and all I could, the poor little Jap guy that's standing directly behind him is getting it right in the face.
Oh my God.
And but when the door opened, it was like the Exodus. They were falling over each other trying to get out the door. I mean, they all got off except me and Andre.
Wait, you didn't run out either? I figured the smell of pea soup.
As the door closes, all you could hear was, oh, 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 oh. He looks at me and he goes, they won't crowd the big man anymore, will they?
That's great.
I love that. My favorite
I've
story.
heard that sound magnified on a steel chair with Andre sitting there naked, not naked, but with no shorts on because he was changing his tights and a towel over him.
Wop, 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 wop.
And the whole dressing room. Oh my God. It smelled like a horse farted. I mean, like you said, the amount of air in the body. Oh my God!
Not to be serious, but did it depress Andre? His size and his limitations for a man who.
I don't think it depressed him, but he was in pain as he got older.
Yeah,
Sounds like it was difficult.
He lived in a lot of pain, and Andre hated drugs.
Okay.
You know, he just hated, you know, and so Andre, I mean, I don't think he ever took any. I mean, his painkiller was wine, basically.
Okay.
And
he seemed to like beer.
Yeah,
he did both.
Yeah.
The first time I met Andre, I'm at West Texas State playing football in college, and this is, you know, now Terry Funk and Dory Funk Jr. That's their dad's territory. They've inherited the territory. Dory's senior is passed away, and. So Andre's coming to town, and he's going to be in the territory for a week. Big deal. But they're going to be gone that night, the Thursday night that Amarillo ran. And so they asked me, they said, can you take Andre out for us after the show? And I said, I'd be happy to. So I took him out, and that's when the first time I met him. And I took him out to one of the clubs that, you know, all the college guys went to, and a place where you could eat and drink. And so the girl comes up to the table to take the order. And I said, I have a beer. And she looks at Andre and he goes, do you have trash can? She says, yeah, we got several. She says, big trash can. She says, oh, yeah. She says, empty trash can, 5 cases of beer on ice at my table.
5 cases.
5 cases.
What does he get for an appetizer?
I looked at her, she looked at me, and I went,
you better do it.
She's a giant. And
this guy fought
you
like
gotta
a
understand.
heavyweight. You better do it.
When if you looked at a beer can in Andre's hand, you almost couldn't see it.
Like a thimble, right?
Yeah, it was like a miniature.
That's crazy.
I mean, so his ability to consume is, you know, it's like there's a lot of spots in that year I was with him that I don't remember well.
And you can also fill up a wash tub. Just think of how, you know, those galvanized wash tubs, how many bottles of wine you can fit in there.
Oh my God.
And then put ice on it.
Yeah.
Now, were you guys ever worried that he didn't like you? Because you hear these stories how if he didn't like you, you were in some. You were.
I met him the first show I ever went to up in Canada, and just met him. But when a couple years later, I was working in Florida. When he came to Florida, Barry and I would pick him up at the airport, or take him on the towns with us. And he'd come down for a week, and Barry had a big old school Ford Bronco, the big ones. And Andre'd sit in the front. Barry, here's Barry's head. There's Andre, and we'd have the back full with wash tubs of wine and cases of beer and a stack of calzones about that big.
Give me your Mount Rushmore of tag teams. You got to pick 4 tag teams that you would put on a mountain and say, okay, these are the 4 tag teams that best represent the sport I love so much and the sport that afforded me a wonderful life. Who are those 4 teams that best represent pro
Steiner
wrestling?
Brothers.
Steiner Brothers, we got one. You agree with that, Ted?
I would.
Okay. Let's see if we can get them to agree on it. This could be interesting. Okay. So we got the Steiners. Who's next? We got 3 teams to go.
Demolition.
I love that. Thoughts,
Yeah,
IRS?
that's cool.
You good with that? Okay. Demolition, Steiners. 2 more. Gets rough, huh? These Mount
Rock
Rushmore
and
ones.
roll.
Rock and Roll Express.
Yeah.
By the way,
I
who will
can
be
see
in
that.
studio later on
I can
this
see
month.
that.
Yeah.
Ted, you good with that?
I could agree with that.
Yep. Okay, one more.
Pat Patterson and
Ray Stevens.
Ray Stevens.
Wow.
That's a great answer.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
Good IRS?
Road Warriors, not in that list?
Ro-
Yeah.
Yeah, you got
I
it.
think so.
Have we gone over 4?
Yeah.
No.
But I think we're going to have to make it 5.
Freebirds? Freebirds?
Wait, the Freebirds are 3 guys. No. Now
All
we're
right.
getting into New Day territory.
Anyway, we want to thank you guys for
New
taking the
Day.
time. What a thrill to have you guys in here.
thank
What
you
a
for
wonderful
having us.
interview.
Thanks for having
Thank you
us.
for answering all the questions honestly, and
Absolutely.
you know.
And remember, remind them, Mike.
Uh-oh. Did we forget to do something, IRS?
Remind them.
Pay up.
Yeah.
Pay up.
Oh, man.
You tax
Sign
chief.
on your-
Told you
Go see the Money Man.
I told you before they came here to have the books all ready.
And
Everybody's got a price.